The Arab Sugar Daddy and the Beautiful Indian Girl by Dr. A. Ahmed. It is a one-sided love story between a rich old Saudi man and a beautiful poor Indian girl. It was written in English and translated into Arabic by Dr. A. Ahmed. It is a story in 6 books. Book 1. The Arab Sugar Daddy falls in love with a beautiful poor Indian girl. Copyrights. All rights are reserved. No part of this book may be reproduced, stored, tribal system, or transmitted in any form or by any means without the prior written permission of the author, except by a reviewer who may quote brief passages for a review for printing in a general magazine, a school journal, or university article. All characters in this novel are fictitious, and any resemblance to real people, living or dead, is purely coincidental. Chapter 31. Mass Arrest by Bombay Police. Be it due to a bad omen, an evil eye, or a curse from birds, whenever the Muslim made Rehan's journey to the desert paradise gets closer, the Bombay police create some false charges and issue an arrest warrant and bar her exit from the hellish state of Hindustan. Moreover, the devil incarnate, Muhammad Satan Khan, blessed barriers and obstacles at the passport office and the international airport. Will these obstacles prevent her from flying this time? God only knows. At that evening party, about 19 foreign girlfriends gathered with their boyfriends at Vakula's apartment and gleefully celebrated one less semester to worry about. The party continued until 2:30 a.m. in the early hours of the next morning and would have continued until dawn had the Indian neighbors not called the Bombay police and reported the loud noise made by some black African students. The police stormed in and evicted all the foreign guests, bringing a measure of peace to the apartment complex. No one was arrested because 2 bottles of whiskey, Black Label, and 5,000 rupees were offered as ransom for the release of the peace and quiet violators. The bribe paved the way for the police to allow 4 of the girlfriends to stay with their Sudanese boyfriends and send the other 5 couples on their way. The next morning, the one-eyed Babikir was so exhausted from everything that happened on this festive occasion that he fell asleep like Rip Van Winkle. He would have slept through the next night, Saturday, if Kalina police officers had not shown up again at their apartment. Babikir woke up screaming when he felt someone pulling him from the bed with his left leg. When he opened his eyes, he saw a policeman hovering over him. He thought he was having a terrible nightmare. The policeman grabbed him by the arm and forced him to his feet. Without saying anything to him, the Indian policeman led him by his nightgown into the living room. Babikir was shocked when he saw more than a dozen armed members of the Kalina police department inside the apartment. All 4 of his roommates and their 4 girlfriends had already been forced out of their beds, brought into the living room, forced to get on their knees and put their hands on their heads. Babikir then asked his Sudanese friends in Arabic why this policeman had returned. None of them have any idea why their apartment was raided again by the cops. One of the policemen shouted at Babikir and asked him to be quiet. While the 9 foreign students were kneeling in the living room and surrounded by 6 fully armed policemen, the other police officers entered their bedrooms and began searching for their bags and lockers. After looting every bag and safe, Bombay narcotics police officers claimed to have found what they were looking for. They then informed the 9 foreign students that they were being arrested on charges of smuggling and selling drugs in India. In India, it is better to be arrested for first-degree murder or a terrorist conspiracy than to be charged with drug trafficking. Indians collectively believe that the killer will kill one person and the terrorist will explode his body into smithereens, taking a few hundred innocents with him. But the drug lord will kill millions and cause widespread devastation to the entire community. What is more, a common misconception in Bombay is that every African student who comes to India for university studies will be involved in drug smuggling or distribution. While this is by no means true, but the facts show a tendency for this type of violation. It would not be an exaggeration to claim that almost every Nigerian student in India is in one way or another involved in some clandestine drug smuggling operation. Almost every week, a Nigerian student is arrested at Bombay International Airport with drugs in his luggage. Sometimes Nigerian students were caught with drugs inside their body cavities. When the Bombay Narcotics Department decided to crack down on drug dealers, the Nigerian students came up with new methods to avoid capture and detention. Nigerian drug traffickers package drugs into capsules and swallow them. The capsules will remain intact for a few hours before your digestive system dissolves them and attempts to digest them. If the capsules are not removed within a specific period of time, the smuggling person will drop dead. It didn't take long for the police to figure it out, and scanners were soon brought in to detect drugs hidden in the cavities and stomachs of smuggling people. Having said that, one can confidently say that it is not true that every African student is involved in drug trafficking. Regardless, many Indians believe that every black African came to India not to study at the university, but to smuggle drugs. In Bombay, if someone hated a foreign student and wanted to ruin his life, he would find a way to hide drugs in his bag or apartment, then make an anonymous phone call to the police and report a smuggled African foreign student doing the forbidden act. He accuses him of being involved in some type of drug activity. Another way some Indians can harm foreign students is through false medical reports about AIDS. In the city of Aurangabad, at Maharashtra state, a black Sudanese student fell in love with the Indian daughter of the police commissioner. When the father learned of the love affair that occurred between the so-called ugly black monkey and his beautiful Indian girl, he broke off their relationship in a very cruel way. I'm not exaggerating when I say that some Indians call African students ugly black monkeys. In Bombay, African students are called black Negroes, but in other cities, they are called black monkeys to their faces. By the way, most Indian universities will implement a mandatory system for all foreign students to be tested for AIDS at least once. And if the test result is positive, the foreign student will be arrested and deported to his country. When the police commissioner discovered the love affair between his beautiful daughter, an upper class girl, and the so-called ugly black student from Sudan, he arrested him and then retested him for AIDS. He then bribed an Indian doctor at the civil hospital to get a positive result. A Sudanese student was arrested. His name was blacklisted, and he was quickly deported to his country. Unfortunately, on Saturday morning, in particular, after raiding the apartment of the 5 foreign students, the Bombay anti-narcotics police found drugs in the back of the Sudanese student Babikir Al-Awar. Aware of truth must be said here. During my 14 years of living in India, I have never heard of a Sudanese student using drugs or being arrested for drug smuggling. I live in Nagpur city for 3 years over a period of time of a year in Ahmedabad city and 10 years in the cosmopolitan city of Bombay. But I have never seen or heard of a Sudanese student becoming involved in drug activities. However, the apartment where Babikir stays with his 4 Sudanese friends is located in one of the 4 tallest buildings in Vakula. Each building is at least 10 stories high. This part of the city is called Vakula Colony and is surrounded by a high fence. There is only one way in and one way out, and that is through the main fenced gate. During the day, the complex is always guarded by a guard who sits in a small booth and carries a large, long stick in his hand. There is another guard on the night watch. Each guard will cover a 12-hour shift. There is a third guard whose job is to make rounds during the night and keep hitting the pavement with his big stick. He must hit the asphalt street, making a loud sound with his stick, tat tat. The colony is well guarded during the night by the watchman who sits at the main gate and the watchman who surrounds the fencing during the third watch and repeatedly beat the street with his big stick. When I arrived in India, I was perplexed by the night watchman who continued this elaborate ritual all night with his stick, preventing me from restful sleep. The next day, I asked my Indian friend Vishwas why there was such commotion going on all night. He told me that thieves recognize the strokes of a stick like a watchman on his rounds, awake and alert, and instead of sleeping in a corner of the building. Residents hear the sound of the stick and know that the night watchman is awake and alert, so they sleep safely and during the night. Night watchman disturbance is a phenomenon that can be seen in every city and town in India. Another strange thing about the night watchman is that they are always Another strange thing about the night watchmen is that they are always from Nagaland province. Once again, I asked my friend Vishwas, why do the night watchmen always come from the state of Nagaland? He said that no one could watch all night or stay awake and go around in circles and beat the ground with his stick except a man from Nagaland. I couldn't refute my Indian friend because I could not do the job even if they gave me 1,000 rupees for every night of guarding. The people of Nagaland are native to India, but they do not look like Indians. They resemble the Chinese and Japanese in features and height. Vakula colony has 2 other guards during the day as well. The first guard is the guard whose job is to sit for 12 hours in his cabin at the gate and ensure that no stranger enters the complex unless express permission is obtained from the apartment tenant in question. The second guard is called the lift man. In India, an elevator is called a lift. If you say elevator in Bombay, most people will not understand that what you are talking about. The lift man must sit inside the elevator from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. If anyone comes between 10 p.m. and 8 a.m., they must, regardless of their age or illness, use the stairs to reach their apartment, even if it is on the 14th floor. This guard man has a lunch break and a dinner break. If someone comes during his lunch or a dinner break, he must use the stairs at these times as well. The man sitting inside the elevator has a key and must lock the elevator during breaks and while he's out of duty. His most important duty is to monitor who comes in and who goes out. If someone managed to jump over the high fencing or trick the guard and make his way into the elevator, the liftman would not let him go any further. He will also not be able to use the stairs unless he's a resident of the colony and has a key to open the stairs door. The liftman has a seat inside the elevator and he has to sit there all the time on that chair and watch with open eyes all the residents and visitors coming in and going out. He must also protect married women and young girls from being sexually harassed, assaulted, and raped inside the elevator. Since that Vakula colony is relatively well guarded day and night, how did the horrific items and forbidden drugs get into the back of the Sudanese student Babikiral hour? There are several possibilities. Either one of the 10 visitors who were invited to the party somehow got into Babikir's room and placed contraband there to implicate him in a serious crime, or someone entered the apartment when no one was there and put drugs in his bag. The 4 Sudanese roommates will be exempt from suspicion because they were all arrested at the same time as their 4 girlfriends. Only someone above the law and would try to do something like this, or someone who had lacked sufficient mental capacity would be so stupid as to do such a crazy thing and involve himself in the charge. It is highly unlikely that all 5 other friends and their girlfriends who were persuaded by the police to leave the party at 3:30 a.m. entered the room and hid the drugs in Babikir's bag. The other possibility is the only reasonable assumption left to explore. If someone had broken into the apartment in his absence, Babikir and his 4 other companions would have found out about the break-in and would have reported it to the police or filed a complaint with the colony secretary. Every year, the inhabitants of each colony meet, choose a secretary from among themselves, and pay him his salary. If someone has a complaint about his neighbors or any problem in his apartment, he will file a complaint with the secretary. The only other possibility is that someone stole the key from one of the 4 roommates or had a spare key. All spare keys are kept with the secretary. It was a breaking and disturbing news when the midday newspaper in Bombay broke the news of the mass arrest of the 5 Sudanese students and their girlfriends in the Santa Cruz area in Vakula colony. This was the first time that Sudanese students were arrested on drug-related charges. All 1,900 Sudanese students at Bombay University went to the Vakula colony and tried to find out how this could have happened. None of them believed this accusation when they read them in the midday newspaper. The huge gathering of black African students in front of the colony led to the secretary calling in the police and forcefully dispersing them. Meanwhile, inside the interrogation room at the Bombay police headquarters, the 5 detained Sudanese students and their 4 foreign girlfriends were severely beaten and tortured to death. Their so-called confessions were forcefully extracted from their bleeding mouths, broken teeth, and dislocated jaws. Narcotics police investigators are tougher than any other police department in India. They are more cruel than the terrorists of the Islamic Caliphate in Syria, which is euphemistically called ISIS. Whatever they want you to confess, they will force you to confess and then record your confession and use it against you in court. Among the 9 foreign suspects, the one-eyed Sudanese student Babikir's face became almost unrecognizable after sustained beatings. Not even his mother or father could recognize his completely disfigured face. Even his ugly friend Jamila, who had recently accepted his engagement with conditions attached and agreed to marry him, would be unable to recognize him or willing to see his disfigured face if she knew who he was. They broke all his front teeth and blinded his seeing eye. The area around his good eye became swollen and disappeared in its socket. Every inch of his naked body received strong blows with an iron rod. He was so battered that he could no longer scream and could only muster a weak groan, struggling to breathe through his broken nose. His jaw became dislocated. Some of his ribs became smashed and broken, and his teeth fell out of his mouth, which was bleeding profusely. Some of his nails were pulled out. In the third world, there are no worse people than policemen. People will say, if your finger becomes a policeman, cut it off. I think all these ruthless Indian police officers will burn in hell forever. Chapter 32, Searching for the Great Negro. A week later, the Indian maid, Rehana Khan, waited for the one-eyed black African boy Babikir in the same restaurant where he asked her to meet him every Saturday. Their usual routine every Saturday is for him to meet her and that at that restaurant and inform her of the progress of her travel abroad soon. Rehana spent nearly 4 hours waiting for him at their meeting place, spontaneously ordering food from the menu for the restaurant until her stomach bursted. After she ate a lot of food, also drank tea for 4 times, coffee 3 times, and soup twice. One was chicken soup and the other was lamb soup. She knows that if she stops ordering from the menu, the waiter will kick her out, and if she refuses to go, he will hand her over to the cops. Sometimes you may be beaten or raped by thugs who are recruited as restaurant guards. These thugs are allowed to beat up guests and rape women who ate and refused to pay for their food or said they forgot or lost their money. No restaurant owner wants to spend money on police and lawyers fighting a case in court that is less valuable than the due process of law. However, after 4 hours, Rehana concluded that the black boy had either forgotten about their meeting or was too ill to keep his appointment. She had no other way to contact him or reach him by phone. Then she returned to her poor hut and waited for the following Saturday. Her main concern was about the tickets and visas he gave her. He told her that he would meet her the following Saturday and take them from her and keep them in his suitcase at his apartment. Then he will return them to her at the international airport on the day of their flight. The Indian maid Rehana was very careful to keep the important travel documents safe. Fortunately for Rehana Khan, the one-eyed Babikir gave her those tickets and visas a few hours before his arrest. If the corrupt Indian police had found their travel papers in his bag on the day of his arrest, she would have been implicated in serious drug charges and arrested, beaten and gang raped again. This time she should never dream of being acquitted and allowed to return to her shack as happened in the falso terrorism charges. A person involved in a drug conviction may be sentenced to at least 19 to 20 years in prison. Moreover, this time she would never have she would have she wouldn't have any rich suspects with her to appoint her lawyers as did her Arab sugar daddy Sheikh Faiz bin Ahmed and the rich Indian man Muhammad Khan. She kept the travel papers in her pocket all day, and when she slept at night, she put them under her blanket and slept on them. Slum dwellers and chol inhabitants do not use beds. They simply place blankets or mattresses on the floor and sleep on them. Rehana fears that her important travel papers will be destroyed if she deposits them in her underground bank, where she keeps thousands of rupees and 500 US dollars. Her savings increased when Babikir gave her 5,000 Indian rupees and another 500 US dollars. With all this money, the Indian mother stopped feeding her children dal and rice or lentils and rice. She bought a live fat chicken, slaughtered it with her kitchen knife, and cooked it for them. On some days, she even bought halal meat for cows and sheep and fed her emaciated children hearty meals. Before she became rich among the slum dwellers of Dharavi, necessity forced her mother and her 6 children to endure vegetarian meals, even though they were not Hindus. They ate only 2 meals a day, lunch and dinner, but after receiving heavenly manna from the rich old Arab sugar daddy, they began to eat breakfast in the morning. Rehana waited another 7 days before going to the same restaurant again and waiting for Babikir. After 3.5 hours of waiting and ordering food, tea, and coffee, she got up and returned to her poor neighborhood. This time, Rehana felt incredibly sad. She saw that the good black Negro boy might have died or that something bad had happened to him. She recalled that Babikir told her that her Arab sponsor had booked their flight and gave her the departure date and time. Rehana simply convinced herself that she might have misunderstood what Babikir told her when he gave her the tickets and the visas. Maybe he wanted her to go to the international airport that day and meet him there, and then get her and her daughter on the plane and send them to the wealthy country of Saudi Arabia. She recalled that on her first attempt, when she and her daughter were supposed to travel to their promised land, the owner of the travel agency, Mr. Muhammad Khan, gave them money for the taxi and told them to come to the airport and meet the black Negro boy who was going to help them enter their plane and fly to the promised land, which was flowing with money and honey. There were only 2 days left until her scheduled departure when Rehana came to this conclusion. So she went to the market and bought a beautiful dress for her cute daughter Iffat and a new dress for herself as well. This time, Rihanna decided not to allow the same Muslim snake to bite her again and send her to prison or hospital or even make her fall into her grave. Once she was miraculously saved from the charge of being a suicidal bomber who was supposed to blow up an Indian Airlines plane, Rihanna learned it through her Hindu neighbors who were the evil Muslim woman who felt jealous of her beauty and coveted her wealth. Therefore, she falsely accused her of murder and theft and reported her to the police authority in the day she and her daughter were supposed to travel to the paradise of the promised land, but instead landed in the most treacherous Indian dungeon in the entire world. So this time, she doesn't want to let the black cobra witch, God's impure Muslim policewoman, prevent them from leaving their hellish country again. She even decided not to go to the Muslim man of that evil witch who wanted it to marry her after her husband died and make her his second Muslim wife. Incidentally, India is the only secular country in the world that allows Muslims to practice the teaching of the Quran and the hadiths of the Prophet Muhammad. In other words, Muslims practice secular Indian law and Sharia law side by side. For example, if a Muslim man marries two wives at the same time, he is allowed to do so. But if a Hindu man or a Buddhist man marries two wives, he will go to prison. For this reason, the lustful Muslim husband, for God's appointed holy policewoman, himself wanted to marry the beautiful widow Rihanna Khan and make her his second Muslim wife. But as we know, the good woman Rihanna rejected the marriage proposal because his number one wife is her best Muslim friend, as she used to think that before she sent her to prison. As for her mother and 5 children, Rihanna believed that the money she was thinking of leaving to them might keep them alive until she found a safe way to send them money from her new paradise in the Arab countries. 2 days later, the wise widow Rihanna Khan revealed her hidden treasure to her mother and asked her to use the money to feed her grandchildren and herself. She even gave $500 to her mother. She only took 500 rupees with her, but she asked her mother to keep those thousands of rupees and foreign currency inside her underground bank in the hut. This time, she did not tell anyone where she and her daughter were going to travel except her own mother and her God Allah and his holy messenger Muhammad. Then she took her daughter Iffat and her small bag and headed to the airport. She carries a small bag of luggage just like a little girl's school backpack. But the slum lady Rihanna Khan doesn't know where the airport is. She does not want to take a taxi because she is afraid that the cab driver will kidnap her, rape her, and then kill her and a young daughter as well. She hears stories from some slum women about how beautiful young women were kidnapped and raped by taxi drivers. She had even heard of taxi drivers working with BIMs, kidnapping young women and selling them as prostitutes or selling them to become criminals for gangs of the Gundas. So she decided to take the local bus to the airport. Rihanna has never been to an airport before. She went to the bus station and asked someone to tell her which bus would take her and her daughter to the airport. She did not mention the airport she was going to. The person she asked looked at her and her small bag and concluded that she was going to the domestic airport. Then he tell her which then he tells her which bus will take her there. So the mother and daughter boarded the bus and headed to Santa Cruz domestic airport. When Rehana arrived at the local airport with her daughter Ifat, she sat on one of the seats and asked her daughter to sit on her lap because the seat was crowded with people. A curious Indian woman of wealthy origin asked her why she was at the airport. Rehana told her that she had come to take a plane ride. The very rich woman was surprised when and then asked her which city in India she would travel to. The rich Indian woman asked her this question because she did not believe that a poor woman like Rehana could buy 2 plane tickets for herself and her daughter. Rehana told the rich lady that she and her daughter were traveling to Saudi Arabia. The rich woman burst out laughing loudly when she heard the name of the country the poor woman said she was going to. Then she said to her sarcastically while she was still laughing, "You need to obtain visas and tickets to go to a country like Saudi Arabia, and you will need at least 500,000 rupees to buy visas and tickets for you and your daughter." Rehana smiled at the noisy, wealthy Indian woman who was interrogating her as if she were a policewoman and looking down on her because of her miserable appearance. Then the slum maid opened her small bag, took out the airline tickets and Saudi visas and showed them to the rich woman. The upper caste Hindu woman's eyes widened and her mouth dropped open when she saw the travel documents. It took her 10 minutes to examine them to determine if they were real. Then she asked the poor woman how she got her expensive visas and tickets. Rehana truthfully told her that an old Arab man had given them to her. The proud woman did not believe Rehana's words, but she told her that she came to the wrong airport. Then she told her that she had to take a taxi and go to Bombay Sahara International Airport located in Andheri area. Trusting the wealthy Indian woman's words, the mother took her daughter and left the Santa Cruz domestic airport. Once outside, she did not take a taxi, but instead asked a man to tell her which bus would take her to the international airport. The man was also surprised when she asked him this question. He also didn't believe that a woman from the slums like Rehana would have any work at an international airport. She doesn't look like a passenger or someone traveling abroad. Despite what he thought of her, he didn't think he had the right to question her any further. He told her the name of the bus that ran from the domestic airport to the international airport, then turned it and walked away. Rehana and daughter Ifat waited for the bus for more than half an hour before it arrived, and she asked the bus driver if this was the bus to the international airport. He also found it difficult to understand why a woman from the slums would go to the international airport, but he said yes, and she and her daughter boarded it. Rehana does not know the time of their flight. She is illiterate and therefore cannot read the time on their tickets. Neither she nor her daughter Ifat went to school at all. She and her daughter also do not have their Indian passports. However, she convinced herself that the good black Negro boy would wait for her and her daughter at the international airport with their passports. When they arrived at Bombay International Airport, Rehana began searching everywhere for the black boy. She didn't remember his name or where he came from. All this time, Rehana was under the impression that Babikir was an Indian man like her. Some people in India, if you were to ask them where New York or a London is located in which country. They would tell you that New York is in Bombay and London is in New Delhi. Rihanna has no idea which city Babikir came from. Because of his black color, she guessed he might be from Kerala or Tamil Nadu province in South India. She knows he's different from other Indians because he is black and has short curly hair. Everywhere she went with him, she heard other Indians calling him Negro. Rihanna thought Negro was an honorable name. To show respect for this particularly important honorable Negro, she said to him on the day he handed her her first allotment of 10,000 rupees sent to her by the rich old sugar daddy. Shukriya Nigrujiji, which means in Hindi, thank you, the great Negro. Many Indians believe that every black man in the world was named Negro by his parents on the day he was born. And they even believe that a black female is called a Negro woman. In any case, the mother Rihanna and her daughter Ifat kept wandering from one place to another inside the huge international airport in search of their great Negro. Airport security allowed them to enter the departure hall because they showed their tickets and visas confirming their flight number and final destination. So they walked and walked and searched until they were overcome with fatigue and sat down to rest. At the place where they rested, there happened to be a black woman who looked like the great lost Negro. Rihanna concluded that the woman was a black Negro and therefore must be either the wife or a sister of the great Negro. She recognized her as a female by her huge breasts, so she started talking to her in Hindi. The black woman could not understand what the Indian woman was telling her because she did not speak Hindi. However, she is interested in knowing what the beautiful Indian woman is trying to tell her. So she spoke to an old Indian man sitting near her in English and asked him to help translate for them. The old man spoke to Rihanna in Hindi and then told the black woman in English that she was looking for a black Negro guy who looked like her husband or a brother. The black woman laughed and said that she was not married and had no brother in India. She then added that she was from South Africa and was traveling by air on her way to Johannesburg. She asked the old man to ask Rihanna which country she would travel to with her cute daughter. When the old man translated for Rihanna what the black woman had asked for, she took out their tickets and visas and showed them to the black woman. The African woman looked at the two tickets and exclaimed, "Oh my God, they only have half an hour before takeoff." Then she stood up, grabbed Rihanna's hand, and forced her to stand on her feet. The Indian maid was frightened and startled when the black Negro woman took her hand and pulled her to get up. Rihanna looked to the old man for an explanation. The old man told her that she should go with her. He also explained that they had to hurry because there were only a few minutes left before their plane took off. Calmness returned to Rihanna after the old man reassured her that it was okay to go with the Negro woman. Then she turned to take her daughter's hand. The African woman did not let go of Rihanna's hand and continued to lead the way through the airport. When they reached the end of the long departure hall, they found 4 security men guarding the entrance to the departure corridor. The African woman spoke to the Indian security personnel in English. Then she took the visas and tickets from Rehana's hands and showed them to one of the security men. The man waved his hand and let them in. The woman then dragged Rehana and her daughter Iffat down the corridor. When they arrived at the crowded departure place, there were 12 checkpoints and 12 rows of passengers impatiently waiting for their turn. The black African woman kept pulling Rehana through all the lines of people standing and waiting. The passengers saw that the beautiful black Negro woman was an air hostess for an African airline. When they crossed the last queue, the bold black woman found an Arab flight attendant and asked her which checkpoint handles the travel papers of passengers heading to Jeddah city in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. The air hostess told her that she was one of the Arab crew members of the Saudi plane. The flight attendant then asked the black African woman if she was traveling on this particular flight. The African woman did not answer and merely took Rehana's tickets and visa out of her hand and presented them to the air hostess. The Arab air hostess told her that she was looking for these two passengers because it was the final announcement and the doors on the plane were about to close in a few minutes. Then she asked Rehana in English about boarding passes. The African woman interceded and told her that they hadn't gotten their boarding passes yet and neither of them could speak English. Without saying another word, the Arab air hostess took Rehana's hand and rushed her daughter Iffat to the nearest checkpoint. The Arab air hostess then spoke to the Indian airport officer in English and explained to him that there were less than 10 minutes left to board the plane. The Indian man took the tickets and visas from the air hostess and looked at them. He checked the computer and verified that the mother Rehana Khan and her daughter Iffat Khan had booked the flight to Saudi Arabia. After that, he took out two boarding passes, quickly filed them out, and gave them to the Arab air hostess. Some passengers who had been in the line for a long time expressed their dissatisfaction and objection to the Arab flight attendant and the Indian airport official allowing others to jump in front of them. The Arab air hostess ignored their complaints and started running towards gate number 7, accompanied by Rehana and her daughter Iffat. As they were on their way to the gate, the black African woman from South Africa smiled and waved them a final farewell. The beautiful mother Rehana Khan did not bother to look back and thank the so-called black Negro woman. However, her cute 7-year-old daughter Iffat turned her face, then waved her little left hand and also smiled at the black woman who helped her with her mother. The black African woman became very happy when she learned that she had done a good job of helping two inexperienced Indian female passengers in time to avoid missing their overseas flight. However, neither the good Negro woman from South Africa nor the hasty Arab air hostess would have been happy to have known that they had ignorantly broken the law and sent two Indian passengers out of their country without their valid Indian passports. Chapter 33. The work of an evil genius monster. Muhammad Khan, the devil's advocate. has done everything in his power to ensure that the so-called Kulaba prostitute Rehana Khan and her boy daughter Ifat Khan do not travel out of the country. He bribed his informant at the passport office and ordered him not to send their passport to the so-called dreaded black nigger, the address of his former disloyal Sudanese employee Babikir, but instead to send them directly to his agency's address. The informant complied with his request, and their passport will mail it to Muhammad Khan Tourism and Travel Company. As soon as the two passports reached his hands, the self-anointed Lord of Hell burned them to ashes with fire. He knew that burning the two passports will not be enough in itself to stop the wealthy sugar daddy Sheikh Faiz bin Ahmed's plan in its tracks and prevent his beloved Indian maid Rehana Khan handing her over to him in his arms his country, the kingdom of Tartarus, Saudi Arabia. The beautiful Indian maid Rehana Khan can still complain to the police about her missing passports and ask the passport office to reissue them again for the said time. Muhammad Khan remembered that Sheikh Faiz bin Ahmed told him that an ugly old black Indian woman arrived at Jeddah International Airport and claimed to be his mate Rehana Khan. On this basis, his travel agency filed a complaint with the international airport about the theft of the two passports of two of its female clients from his commercial agency, and that the thief was one of his employees, a young rapist named Jamal Khan. This criminal thief admitted to the police when he was interrogated that he sold the stolen passport to another travel agency. Then Satan incarnate bribed one of his agents at Bombay International Airport to blacklist the passports of the mother Rehana Khan and her daughter Ifat Khan. And if any two Indian Muslim travelers appear carrying passports issued in these names, they must be immediately arrested, thrown behind bars, and accused of theft and forgery. The deceitful scoundrel is still not satisfied with the two apostles created by the passport office and the international airport of Mumbai to prevent Mother Rehana and her daughter Ifat from traveling to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. He wants to do something to secure his evil plan. He expected that the wealthy Sheikh Ahmed Sugar Daddy Al-Arabi had already sent the two visas and tickets to the damning black foreign student Babikir Al-Awar to give them to his beautiful and sexy Indian maid Rehana Khan. Therefore, the genius villain Muhammad Khan decided to steal the two visas and tickets from the possession of the Sudanese boy Babikir. He has already obtained the address of the apartment where Babikir resides in the Vakula area with his Sudanese friend. He contacted a notorious Muslim Gunda gang leader in Vakula neighborhood and hired him to do his dirty work. He was asked to enter the apartment of the black foreign student Babikir Hussein Osama and remove the two visas and tickets issued to Rehana Khan and her daughter Ifat Khan. After the visas and tickets were stolen, drugs must be planted inside the bag of the foreign student Babikir Hussein Osama. The genius evil Muslim man Muhammad Khan hates nothing more than catching one of his employees or an ex-employees doing something behind his back or refusing to obey his orders, even sexual exploitation in the case of beautiful female employees. For this reason, he sent Jamal Khan to prison for 14 years and fired his sister Nafisa Khan from her job when she refused to voluntarily have sex with him inside the office after work hours. He was also angry when he discovered that the Sudanese foreign student named the diamond black nigger Babikir Al-Awar, who was working for him before, was conspiring with his former wealthy Saudi business partner who had become his arch enemy, Sheikh Fayed Bani Ahmed, to prepare travel papers for his beautiful and sexy Indian maid Rehana Khan and her younger daughter Iffat Khan. In India, when the Gunda gang leader identifies you as his target and puts your name on his hit list, no living human being on earth can keep you away from the danger that is imminent to happen to you sooner or later. Even the Indian police could not protect you from him. The only way to escape from this desperate situation is to kill the Gunda before he kills you. But killing a Muslim Gunda is more difficult than trying to kill hundreds of Muslim terrorists of ISIS, Al-Qaeda, Boko Haram, Taliban, or Hezbollah. Each Gunda leader belongs to a gang of hundreds of thugs from the underground Bombay Mafia. Indian Gundas are like Muslim terrorists in their numbers, which outnumber flies by day and mosquitoes by night. Each Gunda leader has many dangerous gangsters. They are all known as Gundas. In India, the Gunda is an antisocial element who always carries a knife, sword, hammer, or a gun and is ready to use it to kill people in public places and in broad daylight. When the Muslim Gunda of Vakula accepted Muhammad Khan's assignment, he did one thing to grant himself unhindered access to the apartment of the black Negro foreign student Babikir Al-Awar. He made an anonymous phone call to the building secretary and told him that he would kidnap and kill his son, rape, and then shoot his wife if he refused to hand over the spare key to the apartment of the 5 black Negro foreign students staying in his building. The secretary knew that when a Gunda posed a threat to someone's life, it was sure to end in disaster. The words of the Gunda are more predictable than any prophecy of a prophet, seer, or a forecaster of grave future events, and have greater power and influence than all the gods of India. To protect his life and his family, the secretary agreed to hand over the spare key without question. The Muslim Gunda told him that he would send 3 of his dangerous men to get the spare key from him. He also told him that both the guards sitting at the gate and the liftman sitting inside the elevator should not stand in their way when the Gunda thugs entered the compound to get the spare key, or when they need to get to the apartment of the 5 black foreign students. The secretary promised in fear and trembling that he would abide by the demands and conditions set by the Muslim Gunda leader. The frightened Hindu secretary man saw that the Muslim Gunda thugs want to send the Muslim Gunda leader want to send some gangsters to rob the black Negro foreign students' apartment of US dollars, foreign clothes, or other expensive things. While the foreign student Babikir Al-Awar and his 4 Sudanese friends were taking their final exams at their university colleges on Friday, the 3 Muslim Gundas of Zaks arrived at the Vakula apartment building, obtained the spare key from the terrified Hindu secretary, and entered the apartment of the 5 black Negro students. They conducted a thorough search of each room and identified the student Babikir's bag by his photo ID card. They were unable to find the two visas and tickets for the Indian-made Rehana Khan and her daughter Iffat Khan, but they put the drugs inside the bag of the black Sudanese foreign student, Babikir Hussein Usama. They made sure to leave everything as it was before they left the apartment. After that, they locked the apartment, returned the spare key to the frightened secretary, and left. The Hindu secretary was very surprised when he saw the three Muslim gangsters leaving the apartment empty-handed and not carrying any stolen items in their hands. But he was frightened enough and held his tongue without asking them what they had done inside the apartment of the five black Negroes. It was the hideous Muslim man Muhammad Khan himself who made an anonymous phone call to the Bombay Narcotics Control Police and reported drug trafficking activity taking place inside a particular apartment located in Vakula building at Santa Cruz area. He refused to reveal his identity to the police and claimed to be a good Muslim citizen who would love to stop crime. He gave them the building and apartment number and made sure to tell the anti-drug police that there were five black African foreign students involved. He merely claimed to be a devout, God-fearing Mohammedan Indian citizen who runs a profitable business and whose duty is to stop crime. The anti-narcotics police were unable to trace the source of the anonymous phone call because the devil incarnate Muhammad Khan made the call from a public phone on Causeway Street in Kulaba neighborhood. As the evil genius expected it, the Bombay police raided the apartment of the five innocent Sudanese foreign students and arrested them along with their four foreign student girlfriends. On the same day, when the evil boss Muhammad Khan read the midday newspaper, he laughed until he fell out of his chair. Then he went to his female employees and the only male employee in the other office and showed them what the damning one-eyed black Negro boy Babikir Hussein Osama did, who worked for him. But some girls doubted the credibility of the accusation and considered it another false charge fabricated by an Indian person who hates black African foreign students, especially the one-eyed Negro boy Babikir, and in whose bag drugs were found. The one who doubted the false accusation the most was the ugly employee, Jamila, whom Babikir loves, but she does not love him. A selfish girl was crushed when she realized that her golden chance to marry a foreigner who promised to take her to the promised land of Saudi Arabia was gone forever. On that fateful morning, just as the Bombay Narcotics Police had taken all nine African foreign students, boys and girls, to jail, their Indian neighbors broke down the door of their apartment and stole everything. They didn't leave the furniture or anything. They even took the tables and chairs. They also took food and fruit out of the refrigerator and looted them. Even their trash was stolen. The apartment was left empty as if its occupants had cleaned it before vacating it and moving elsewhere. Shortly after the robbery, the Hindu secretary brought in 3 poor, unemployed women and paid each of them 20 rupees to clean the apartment. Then he called a carpenter and asked him to repair the dilapidated and damaged door. A few days later, he rented the empty apartment to some foreign Arab students who came to study at the University of Bombay from Jordan and Israel. Chapter 34. There is a Muslim female suicide bomber on board. For inexperienced travelers like the beautiful maid Rehana Khan and her cute daughter Ifat Khan, a plane ride is no fun at all. Everything she heard from the gossip mongers in the shacks and alleys of the slums in Dharavi about the plane crashes, hijackings, mid-air explosion by Muslim terrorists, suicide bombers, or bombs planted inside planes. All of that came to her mind when she boarded the giant Saudi Airlines jumbo jet. Her heartbeat began to increase in rhythm the moment the hasty Arab air hostess dragged her and her daughter onto the plane like 2 lost sheep. It was the same Saudi air hostess who gave them their boarding passes and took them through the narrow aisle of gate number 17 until she got them inside the plane and showed them their seats. She fastened their seat belts, then smiled and left. In their haste, no one bothered to ask them about their valid Indian passports. When they entered the boarding platform with the Arab air hostess, another member of the Saudi cabin crew checked their boarding passes and waved them in. If the Indian Muslim air traveling mate Rehana Khan had happened to be a suicide bomber at the Abelit, Hindu police inspector Shankaracharya had previously claimed, she might have blown up the plane as soon as it took off and sent all the crew and passengers straight into the sky. No one at Bombay Sahara International Airport checked her small bag or examined her body to see if she had any weapon or an explosive belt tied around her waist. It is fairly common at Bombay International Airport for air passengers to check their bags, get their boarding passes, and then disappear. This same passenger will return to the city and commit murders. These hired killers later use their boarding passes as an alibi to prove that they were outside the country when the murders they were accused of committing were carried out. Thank God, Rehana Khan is neither a Muslim terrorist, suicide bomber, nor a bad murderer. When the Saudi plane took off from Bombay International Airport, she started it, shaking and sweating from head to toe. She holds her chair with one hand and her daughter with the other. She thinks that they might fall out of the plane at any moment, or the plane will fall from the sky and they will all crash on the ground or dive into the Arabian Sea. Her tears flowed like a fountain down her terrified face, but her silence did not hide her panic. These frightening moments soon passed as the plane began to fly horizontally. Rehana began to believe that they had quickly reached their final destination in the promised land, overflowing with money and gold. Then the Muslim mother whispered in her daughter Iffat's ear and told her in Urdu that they had arrived in the rich Arab country. This idea is incorrect because one of the Arab cabin crew flight attendants approached their row of seats and asked her in broken Hindi whether she was a vegetarian or a non-vegetarian woman. The inexperienced passenger did not understand the question, but the air hostess checked her boarding pass and understood from her name, Rehana Khan, that she was a Muslima and therefore a non-vegetarian Indian woman. Then she asked her what kind of biryani she wanted to eat, beef, chicken, or a lamb. Again, Rehana couldn't understand the question. This time, the Arab air hostess enlisted the help of a nearby Hindi translator to explain her question. Rehana concludes that she is sitting in an expensive restaurant and the food will exceed her budget of 500 rupees. So she shook her head, indicating that she did not want to eat any food. The beautiful Arab flight attendant smiled and then pointed to her cute daughter, Ifat, indicating that the little girl traveling with her should at least eat something. When Rehana rejected her daughter's offer of biryani, the beautiful Arab woman realized that perhaps the poor Indian woman felt she had to pay for the food. She used the same Indian translator and told her that the price of food on the Saudi plane had already been paid for through their airline tickets. Once Rehana heard that the food was free, she changed her mind and said that she also wanted it to eat something. She ordered lamb biryani for herself and chicken biryani for her little daughter. Biryani is the most delicious Pakistani and Indian cuisine. It originated in Persia, today's Iran, and was brought to the Indian subcontinent by Iranian travelers and merchants. It is prepared from tender pieces of chicken, lamb, or beef cooked in spicy, creamy mixture of rice, saffron, onions, garlic, ginger, turmeric, cumin, tomatoes, ghee, cloves, cardamom, cinnamon, mint leaves, and chili pepper. It seems that the Persian person who created this tasty dish used all the edible herbs and spices in the world to produce this delicious biryani recipe. Biryani is not an everyday dish, but is meant for special occasions like weddings and holy day celebrations. It is also cooked during religious holidays, such as Eid al-Fitr at the end of Ramadan, Eid al-Adha during the Hajj pilgrimage to Mecca, Diwali and Holi for Hindus, Christmas for Indian Christians, etc. Recently, vegetarian biryani has been prepared and served to Hindus in India and Pakistan cuisine restaurants abroad, such as in Europe, America, Australia, and Canada. Usually, the Indian-made Rehana and her daughter Ifat did not use the knife and fork very often, except when they were eating food while in public. They forgot that they were inside the plane and in a public place and started devouring the delicious plates of biryani meat with their fingers and hands as if they were in the poor shack in the Dharavi neighborhood. During her 3-week of honeymooning with her handsome missing lover Jamal Khan, Rehana noticed that after every meal they had in a restaurant together, her lover would put some money as a tip on the table for the waiter or waitress. In an attempt to be generous with the nutritious and delicious complimentary meal of biryani she and her daughter ate, Rehana took out a 5 rupee note from her handbag and placed it on the table in front of her seat for the beautiful Arab air hostess to take as a tip. She even licked and sucked her 10 fingers after she finished eating the delicious lamb biryani. When the beautiful Saudi hostess came to take the empty trays, she laughed and returned the money to Rihanna. While she was retrieving the ruby note, she whispered in the ear of the Indian passenger and thanked her for her generosity. Then she used the same Indian translator and explained that the plane was not a restaurant and they did not accept tips from passengers. After removing all the food trays, some passengers removed their seat belts and began moving around the plane. Some of them go to the lavatory and others just stretching their legs. The naive Muslim traveler Rihanna saw that the plane had arrived at the airport in the rich land of the Arabs. So she asked one of the flight attendants to unbuckle her and her daughter's seat belts. As soon as they were freed from their seats, the mother took her daughter's hand and began walking her toward the front passenger exit door of the plane. When they reached the door, she grabbed the handle and was about to open the door of the plane that was still hovering in the sky. An air hostess saw her at the right moment and pulled her hand from the door handle. "What do you want to do, ma'am?" the flight attendant shouted at Rihanna. "We are going outside. Return to your seats and do not move until we tell you that the plane has landed safely at Jeddah International Airport." Then the angry air hostess grabbed the hand of the crazy Indian passenger, Rihanna, and returned her to her seat. She then tied her and her daughter with seat belts. Then she informed the rest of the cabin crew about what had happened. After that, she returned to the passenger Rihanna and was accompanied by another air hostess. The second flight attendant asked Rihanna not to move again from her seat, and if she or her daughter wanted to use the restroom, she had to press the button above her, and the flight attendant would come and take her to the toilet. The air hostess then asked the passengers sitting around her and near Rihanna not to help her unbuckle the seat belt, and if she was able to unbuckle the seat belt herself, they should inform a member of the cabin crew immediately. As a result, the inexperienced Indian passengers were grounded and imprisoned in their seats until another problem occurred. Before the plane landed at Jeddah International Airport, flight attendants distributed forms to passengers and asked them to fill them out. By filling out the forms, passengers will avoid any unnecessary delays at Jeddah International Airport upon their arrival. The forms are written in Hindi, Arabic, and English. Rihanna had never gone to school in her life, so the writing on the forms seemed to her like black ants crawling together and swarming together. She turned to the passenger sitting next to her and asked him to help her fill out the forms. The traveling man is an Indian like her. He agreed to help the illiterate Indian woman. He began to ask her questions on the form and then started it, filling in the information specified in the appropriate boxes and lines. "What is your first name?" Rihanna. "Last name?" Khan. "Coming from any country and city?" "Bombay, India." "Going to any country and city?" "Jeddah in Saudi Arabia." "Purpose of visit?" "On a med visa." "Address?" "I don't have an address." The Indian man laughed when the passenger Rihanna said she had no address. Then he asked her where she lived before she travel from Bombay. She told him that she used to live in the Dharavi slum area. The man wrote as a vague address, Dharavi slum, Bombay. Passport number. I don't have a passport. The man was deeply shocked when the Indian passenger Rehana Khan said she did not have a passport. He asked her this question 3 times before asking her to give him her travel papers so he could find her passport among them. He said he would show her what her passport looked alike. Rehana gave him the 2 tickets, the 2 visas, and the 2 boarding passes. The man told her that none of the official papers she had given him had her Indian passport among them. He then took out his Indian passport and showed it to her and asked her to show him the same official document as hers. Rehana told him that her and her daughter's passports were kept with the black Negro boy who was helping them to travel abroad. The man asked her to look inside her small bag again. The maid Rehana Khan knows that she does not have 2 Indian passports in her small bag. However, she handed her entire bag over to him. The man searched through her little bag and carefully took out her Punjabi clothes, sirwal kameez or a pants and shirt, her small red swimsuit-like underwear, a green Indian sari for the mother Rehana, and a beautiful black dress for her daughter Ifat. Then he carefully searched the small empty bag as if he were searching for gold in a mine hole. Finally, the Indian man became convinced that the poor Muslim woman and her poor daughter had somehow entered the Saudi plane without their Indian passports. Out of pity, the Indian passenger waved his hand to the same beautiful Arab air hostess and invited her to come. Then whispered in her ear that the Indian woman sitting near him with her daughter did not have their 2 passports. The Saudi air hostess did not believe this amazing news. She spoke to the Indian passenger Rehana through an Indian translator, another female passenger, to verify the man's claim. The Muslim passenger Rehana Khan gave her the same vague answer. Our passports are with the black Negro boy. The air hostess happened to be the same one who had screamed at Rehana before and prevented her from opening the plane door. So she doubted the credibility of Rehana's words and thought there was something suspicious about her behavior. She returned to the other crew members and informed them of the suspicious behavior of the Indian woman traveling with them inside the plane. A cabin crew member came to the hasty conclusion that the Indian woman might be a Muslim terrorist, which greatly frightened the hell out of the others. Another frightened air hostess immediately backed up her conclusion. The belief that the Indian passenger Rehana is a Muslim terrorist is supported and agreed upon by all members of the cabin crew. Even the pilot and his co-captain agreed that this Indian woman must be a Muslim terrorist. The hasty conclusion was unanimously accepted because it was based on several observations. First of all, the Arabian air hostess stressed that she cannot believe that a passenger could pass through all those tight security and checkpoints at Bombay Sahara International Airport without a valid Indian passport. Secondly, no passenger is stupid enough to try to open the cabin door of an airplane while in the air, as this Indian Muslim woman named Rehana Khan did. Thirdly, the Indian Muslim woman did not go through the legal process that every passenger must go through before being allowed to enter the plane. Accordingly, the Muslim woman Rehana Khan was smuggled into the plane through a carefully thought out terrorist plot. When the plane crew collectively came to believe that Rehana Khan was a terrorist, they notified the armed marshal guarding the plane against any security threat. He is a Saudi security man affiliated with the anti-terrorism police department in Jeddah city. The air marshal took the matter seriously. He asked the flight crew to try not to alert the suspected Indian woman. Passengers must not be informed either so as not to cause panic and chaos inside the plane. Then the marshal went to the suspected passenger, unbuckled her seatbelt, and asked her to come with him. Rehana refused to come with him without her daughter Ifat. She asked him to unbuckle her daughter's seat belt, and then they both could come with him. The marshal inadvertently agreed and released Ifat from her seat belt as well. Then he asked them to follow him. When they reached the small lavatory, the suspected Indian passenger was asked to go inside. This time, Rehana Khan obeyed his order without asking her daughter Ifat to come with her. After that, the marshal called one of the flight attendants and told her to ask Rehana Khan to remove all her clothes, including her underwear and bra, and become completely naked. The Muslim passenger Rehana refused to take off her clothes when the Arab flight attendant asked her through an Indian translator to do so. The Arab marshal told Rehana that if she did not remove her clothes completely, he would enter the toilet and remove them from her body. The Indian Muslim passenger was afraid that the angry armed Arab man would forcefully remove her clothes and tear them. So she took off her Indian sari first, then her pants and Punjabi shirt, Sarwal Kameez. She felt ashamed and afraid as she stood in front of the strange man with only her bra over her big breast and her small pink panty over her large buttocks and covering her hairy pussy. The armed Arab man did not just remove her outer dress. He then insisted that the suspect remove her bra and underwear as well and become completely naked. Rehana started crying and begged the Arab man while screaming and putting her hands on her face and asked him not to expose her private parts. However, the marshal refused to change his mind, and as she stood and cried, he repeatedly shouted at her to quickly remove her bra and underwear. By this time, all passengers had become aware of the Indian woman suspected of being a suicide bomber and that she might blow up the plane at any moment. Some women and children started crying, while the male passengers trembled with fear and looked at the toilet where the female suicide bomber is expected to carry out her terrorist attack at any moment and send them all burned and carried a corpse into air. Some devout passengers, Christian, Muslims, and Hindus began praying for their inevitable deaths. The armed Arab marshal continued to insist that the suspected Indian passenger remove her clothes completely, while Rehana continued to refuse to obey his orders. When the suspected Muslim terrorist continued to refuse to remove the rest of her clothes, the marshal took one step into the toilet and shouted at the top of his lungs while shouting at her in Arabic, which was translated into Hindi by the translator. Take off your underwear and bra, or I will do it myself. The terrified Indian passenger Rehana Khan concluded that the angry Arab man was going to rape her. She started screaming loudly and begged him not to enter the toilet and attack her. She promised that she would remove the rest of her clothes. Then, shaking and trembling, Rihanna removed her black bra and big underwear, then covered her genitals with her hands. The marshal asked her to put her hands above her head and turn in the opposite direction. Rihanna obeyed the command and placed her hands on her head. She never expected that one day she would stand in front of a man who was not her legal Muslim husband, completely naked like this. Her tears fell like hot water down her face, and her body trembled from head to toe. The marshal holds a metal detector in his left hand, and in his right hand he holds a gun and points it at her. Then he moved one step into the lavatory until his body was almost attached to her sexy naked body. Then he moved one step into the lavatory until his body was almost attached to the sexy naked body of the suspected Muslim suicide terrorist and began examining it. Then he asked her to turn forward and face him. His metal detector moved from Rehana's big bare breast and past her stomach and her black pubic hair, her vulva, and her long legs until it reached her bare feet. After that, he asked her to turn around and face the opposite direction. His metal detector moved from Rehana's long black hair and shoulders past her waist and stopped for a few minutes on her big bare butt. Perhaps the marshal is taking into consideration the case of the Nigerian Muslim terrorist Omar al-Farouk, who inserted the explosive device into his ass. After ensuring that the suspected Indian woman had not inserted anything into her body or private parts, he asked her to hand over all her clothes to him. Rehana sweats like she is in a sauna. She bent her knees, still facing the opposite direction, until her bare big ass rubbed against his erect cock. Then picked up her scattered clothes piece by piece. She is afraid to turn her face toward the angry Arab man. She saw that if she made any wrong move without his permission, he would shoot her naked body with all the bullets in the gun he held in his other hand. The marshal carefully examined Rehana's clothes before returning them to her. When he finished, she was told to put on her dress. After she got dressed, the marshal asked her to stay inside the toilet until he returned. Then he locked her inside the small restroom by placing a thick lock on the outside of the door. The Arab marshal was not completely satisfied with what he did to the mother, Rehana, and then he also carefully examined her daughter. The little girl Iffat started crying when she heard her mother, Rehana, crying inside the small toilet. She saw that they wanted it to shoot her mother dead. She was not allowed to go to the toilet. When they forced her mother to go into the lavatory alone and undress her completely naked as the day her mother gave birth to her. On that fateful day, the innocent Indian Muslim passenger Rehana Khan was humiliated after her privacy was violated. She was forced to take off her clothes and expose her private parts. She is a victim of Islamophobia. after the cowardly terrorist attacks of September 11, 2001 on the Twin Towers in New York, America, some people consider every Muslim man a terrorist or a Muslima woman a terrorist and a walking and talking time bomb. After verifying that her young daughter Iffat Khan was not a minor Muslim terrorist, the Arab Marshal went to the seat of the suspected suicide bomber terrorist mother Rehana Khan and began carefully searching her bag in look of the supposed bomb hidden inside or around her seat. Finally, after all the humiliation, embarrassment, and indignity she had been subjected to, the Marshal declared that the Indian Muslim passenger Rehana Khan and her daughter Iffat Khan were not suicide terrorists. If any of the plane's crew or passengers had known that she was the same Indian Muslim maid who was accused in Bombay of the same terrorist charge, they would have thrown her out of the door and sent her and her daughter to the sky with the zodiac signs. After that, the Indian passenger Rehana Khan was released from being confined to the toilet and allowed to return to her seat with her daughter Iffat. Then and only then, the flight crew began questioning the passenger Rehana Khan about her Indian passport and the passport of her daughter Iffat Khan. Once again, the insulted and humiliated Indian passenger Rehana Khan said that their Indian passport were with the black Negro boy. All members of the plane's crew did not understand Rehana's words except for one flight attendant. It was the hasty Arab flight attendant who brought her and her daughter onto the plane without passports. She was able to find out what the naive Indian passenger Rehana Khan means by black nigger boy. She told the flight crew where she met the suspected terrorist and her daughter and who the woman who brought them to her was. However, the Arab air hostess laughed until she held her stomach. And when she somehow managed to speak through her loud laughter, the Arab air hostess said that the Indian woman and her daughter saw that the black African Negro woman who had brought them to her was a black Negro boy because the black woman had short hair like a guy and a face like a Negro man who looked like a gorilla in the jungle of Africa. Then the Arab air hostess concluded her racist remark by saying, the black African Negro woman probably forgot to hand over the Indian passports to them because they were in a hurry. This convincing conclusion of the hasty Arab air hostess solved the mystery of the mysterious disappearance of the passports of the two Indian Muslim passengers, Rehana Khan and her daughter Iffat Khan. Accordingly, the flight crew members, the captain, his co-pilot, and the armed Saudi marshal felt relieved and no longer worried about the problem of the suspected Muslim terrorist female suicide bomber on board the plane. Shortly thereafter, the giant Saudi jumbo jet landed it safely at Jeddah International Airport in the Kingdom of Tartarus, Saudi Arabia.